Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel and to something different, something a little bit different that we're gonna give a little go. Um, we're reviewing some movies. Specifically, it's one movie today. But in the future we'll review more movies. And this isn't going to be like well, I mean, you'll have seen the title of what this film is. So it's not a new film. It's 31 years old, I think. 32 years old, 31 years old. I think it came out in 92.
Yeah, 31.
Yeah. So it's quite old. It's older than us. But basically we'll be looking at films that we enjoy, that we like, that we've both seen, that maybe we haven't seen in a while, or that we want to talk about. And we're kicking this all off with The Muppet Christmas Carol, which I think, and personally, is my favourite Christmas film, and also my favourite adaptation of A Christmas Carol, because I think it's highly regarded by a lot of people. But yes, if you're unfamiliar with the film, first of all, go and watch it, because we'll be spoiling the Muppet Christmas Carol and the Christmas Carol in this. So
yeah, this is a very faithful adaptation of it, really. So we would be
really
spoiling
is.
it.
Yeah. So go and watch it. Go and read the book if you want. But yes, this came out in 1992. It was Walt Disney Pictures and the Jim Henson Company. And it's directed by I think is it Brian Henson?
Brian Henson, yeah.
And it's his first directorial debut, and what a way to start. And I think I looked at his IMDb and it's just so unlucky, Brian. They can't all be winners. But yes, this is naturally it's a Christmas Carol, except it stars the Muppets.
Yes.
Which in the 90s and 80s the Muppets had a sort of a shtick for doing adaptations and just basically doing exactly the same source material but with Muppets. So we had Muppets Treasure Island, which came out I think before this one, and after this one was Muppet Wizard of Oz as well, which I'll be honest,
There's a Muppet Wizard of Oz.
Yes, I don't think it's well reviewed, but there's certainly
next
there.
time on. Wow. I'm going to say right from the off, I'm not a Muppet person. I'm a Muppet person. I'm not a Muppet person.
Yeah, you're a man. You're a man, not a Muppet, is what you're saying.
I am a man, not a Muppet. This is genuinely the only Muppet thing I've actually really seen, I think.
And whereas I am a big Muppet person, I am the Muppet of the Man on Muppet. I, as you can probably see here and here, I really like the Muppets. I have a beaker hat. I've seen most of the Muppet films. My favorite Walt Disney World attraction is the Muppets 3D show in Hollywood Studios. So I'm a big Muppet fan. And I think for me, at least, this is the film that sort of kicked all that off, which is probably the case for a lot of people. But yes, alongside the Muppets in this is Michael Caine, Alfred himself.
My God.
And boy, does he take everything so seriously in this. And I think if he didn't, it would be a worse film for it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He's having the time of his life acting alongside basically pretty much puppets, except for 2 scenes, I think, where he shares the screen with another human.
Yeah.
Which is madness when you think about it. And how they got him to do this is beyond me. I don't know whether he just loves the Muppets or they just paid him a lot. It's one.
Maybe we can find out some fun facts.
Oh, we'll come on to that. Well, I mean, it's a Muppets Christmas Carol. It's a Christmas Carol. People know the story, but if you don't know the story, Scrooge is bad guy. He likes money. He doesn't like Christmas. And he gets visited by 3, technically 4 ghosts.
5
in Christmas Eve night. Oh, technically 5. 4 different times he gets visited by ghosts. He gets visited by his old not his boss, his old partner. In the case of this one, it's 2 of them. And he also gets visited by
Marley.
Yes, but very convenient. And I think, again, in terms of the Muppet choices, that's a great casting decision.
I kind of know some general Muppet stereotypes, if you will. So when I saw
the cliche
I've only seen this film twice. I watched it once 2 years ago, and then yesterday as we're recording this. So even when they popped up as them, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And even when they show up as the younger selves as well, you're like, yeah, this is spot on. And then he gets visited by the ghost of Christmas Past, which is creepy as fuck, and I absolutely hate that puppet.
Fuck that ghost, honestly.
That is
that's
horrifying.
always the creepiest one.
It.
I hate it.
It's terrifying, and it doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be like that. Then he gets visited by the best ghost, the ghost of Christmas Present, who has, in my opinion, the best song in the film.
I agree. That's my favorite song. This is the season of the heart. It's so good.
It's so wholesome, and he's such a great ghost. And then they're also visited by the horrific ghost of Christmas Future, which as a child scarred me. I was horrified by this thing. Which again is the point, that's the whole point of the ghost of Christmas Future, is it's supposed to be creepy because it's supposed to be literally scaring him to change his ways. And spoiler alert, he does change his ways. We're in a nice Christmassy mood, and he spood, that's a new thing. And he promises to carry the feeling of Christmas throughout the year. Hooray! Nice happy ending. Everyone's happy. All the Muppets get to live. All the Mises get their cheeses. And it's great.
And Tiny Tim
did not die. And my favorite thing this year has been the realization that that's an actual line in the book and not just something.
Do you not know that's in the book?
No, I saw it this year. I only read the book this year as well, and I was like, oh my god,
this is great. That's so silly.
But
oh my god, this was ripped off Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yeah,
it's exactly the same line.
I mean, it didn't help that throughout the whole thing I was just picturing the Muppets while I was reading A Christmas Carol, and it's what can you do? It's not my fault. They shouldn't have made such a good film. But overall, what do you think of the Muppet Christmas Carol? I know you've only seen it twice, but what are your vibes?
Yeah, vibes are good. The vibes are strong. I really enjoyed it. I'm a huge fan of A Christmas Carol anyway. We studied it at school, which definitely helped. But I genuinely think it's like the best in terms of like a story. I think it's just the best story ever written. Like, it's just so good. His whole no, maybe I won't go down
Charles Dickensy.
That's unfortunate. Maybe I shouldn't have started that. But he was on something when he wrote that.
Probably opioids.
Probably, yeah. Let's not lie. So yeah, just starting off as that as your base level, I think you're in for a good time here. But you include the Muppets. I think what I really like about it is that they just commit to the story, and I think when I first watched it, my big fear was like, they're gonna Muppetify this hugely, and it's gonna be like a completely different thing basically. But they really stick with the vibes of it and the tone of it, which I appreciate. It's very accurate to how things play out in the book as well. So I did like how faithful it was, surprisingly, considering most of the cast are puppets. And you do almost forget that, even though it's like I'm watching a frog and a pig.
An anteater and a
rat. Telling this story, and a frog and a pig with their little frog children.
Frog and a pig.
Yeah, and the little pig children and the very sick frog child. And it's just like, makes sense. Sure, why not? But yeah, it's really good from start to finish. I remember I liked it well enough when I first watched it, but I really enjoyed it this time. I think the Christmas vibes certainly help. I think we'd only just really decorated the house that I'm in with all the Christmas stuff, and then I watched it that evening. So the vibes were immaculate. But yeah, it's just a great time. Michael Caine just gives it his all. He's amazing in this. I can't get over how great he is. I think it genuinely is his best performance in anything. It's just so good.
It is. It's baffling how good it is. And
that bit in When Love Is Gone, when he joins in, he's singing these all like he did not have to go that hard, and he did in a Muppet movie. It's amazing. But just the spectacle of it all, and all the puppetry and everything goes into the production. It is kind of an incredible achievement, I think. I really enjoyed it. Great songs throughout it as well. And again, that's the kind of thing that could so easily spoil the story, shoving songs in there, making a musical out of it. But I think particularly with this version, it really does enhance it. And I think, it makes it more accessible to kids, I guess, this sort of story, and adults as well, if they don't want to be quite so depressed when watching the story. So yeah, it's just a really good time. I had an absolute blast with it. I will not lie.
Mm-hmm.
Very, like you kind of mentioned, like very little wrong with it, I think, as well. There's a few things I like. I'd rather they not did that or whatever. But it's the best Muppets movie I've ever seen. So
yep, that's fair enough.
That's not wrong. That's not wrong.
No. I mean, it probably is the best Muppet movie as well. I think it's probably fair to say that it is the top tier Muppet movie.
Yeah.
And obviously they were at the time probably more known for the Muppet movie and the Muppet Show. But I think this is what at least sort of kept the longevity going. Which, especially, like I said, especially for me, this is where it sort of all started for my love of the Muppets. And yeah, I mean, the music, I was just thinking as it was going, like, it's just banger after banger after banger. And I'm
it
like,
really is.
This is great. It kicks off excellently with Scrooge. And the only dull one maybe is the Kermit one, but even then they've got the whole dancing penguins and he does a little ice skating and it's like, it's just, and the scene where it pulls back and he's like looking at the stars. I was like, oh, it's very nice. There's just very little wrong with it. And yeah, I mean, you mentioned the puppetry. Obviously, you do forget, and it's baffling how you forget that they're real puppets. And it's something that a lot of people said, and I know that going to the behind the scenes of Doctor Who with their puppets, they were kind of like, oh, you start treating it like it's a real thing, like you start personifying it, even though you can see there's somebody controlling it. And it's baffling how that it can make people believe that they're real, and it still carries on these to this day. Gonzo was on the bloody Game Awards, and that's a puppet. It's a puppet. It's not a real thing, but he was like guest star Gonzo, and it's like, how does that work?
If you commit to like actually doing it, I think the people watching it will believe it as well. It's like Warhorse, the stage version of Warhorse. That's insane. Like, you just forget. There's literally people just on stage like doing all of that with the horse, and you really do forget that there are people there. It is an insane kind of art form, really. Like, who came up with the idea of a puppet in the first place? Like, absolute mad person. But look at where we are now. Look at what they can make from it.
Yeah, I know. Jim Henson really didn't know what he started when he created the Muppets.
No.
And it's like it's still lasting now. This is one of the most popular Christmas films ever. And it's so family friendly. Even when it does get a bit scary towards the end. And yeah, we mentioned Michael Caine. I think it's just there's a whole reason why there's a whole meme around changing the whole cast to be Muppets and leaving one actor, and it's because of this. It's because of Michael Caine's sort of performance in this and how seriously he takes everything when he is acting against a Muppet and somebody. It just to have the stoicism that he somehow provides to this, and not it could so easily just phone it in and ham it up and be a bit more loose with it, but he's so serious. And yeah, it's great, and he really conveys the emotion as well, and it does get quite emotional, especially towards the end, obviously with Tiny Tim dying and him losing his basically his soulmate and stuff, and it's just
when he wipes the snow off his grave, and the way he says his name, I'm like, oh my god, where's your Oscar for this film?
And he sort of just crawls to the other guy, and he's like, oh no, and then the transition when he falls to his bed, it's like, oh god, all this is great.
Particularly like early film Scrooge, it'd be so easy for anyone to just phone that in, because you could just probably I'm going to say things like this because I'm miserable.
Yes.
And you could get away with it. That's how Scrooge was at the start. But even that, he's just giving it his all. He's just so good.
Yeah. When he throws the wreath at the poor little homeless mouse, I was like,
that's my favorite character. I love that mouse.
But like,
I feel so sad for him.
It is when it pans to him shivering in the mist.
Like, oh god,
you don't need this. Oh god. Yeah, it's great, and I think one thing I sort of noticed as well is just the set design for this film as well. It's all practical, and I think that really sells it. And if you look too carefully, you can see where the set ends, and it's then just a painted on thing. But it sells it. There's when Kermit and Tiny Tim are sort of walking down and doing their little song. That's all done with just a rotating like log, so it looks like they're walking on. It's all great. It's all done really well. Don't know what the budget was in '92 for this, but it wouldn't have been loads. And it all looks immaculate. You really feel like you're there. And it skips not even just in London, but to the countryside where he went to school. And Sam Eagle is great in that. Is great. He's the actor. Sam Eagle, the character, the actor, whatever, is great in that way. He's like, it's the American way. It's like, and then it's just quick. Oh,
yeah, I like that.
It's the British way. It's great. And that's kind of like the things that only the Muppets could get away with. Like that, they already set it up with the fourth wall break with, you know, Gonzo and Rizzo being the narrators and sort of going through. And they do have a lot of fun with that. And I don't think it's not at the expense of the story either. It could so easily be a sort of, you know, interrupting thing that stops the flow, but I think it all works and flows really nicely with this. And I think having Gonzo as Charles Dickens, the narrator, and then Rizzo just be himself as he is credited in the titles, is a nice sort of storytelling technique to sort of have it easily flow through and it not have to worry about the pacing issues in terms of getting from one place to another. It's easy for the context, and it's also easy for audiences to sort of sit back and enjoy it. Pacing is another thing. I think this pretty much. There's maybe a little dip where it gets to Fozzie Bear's like Christmas party, but other than that, I think it's a very minor dip. I think the pacing on this is very good. I wasn't bored.
And I am left like right at the start. I'm like, start already. But it's just that classic like 90s film thing of like we need to credit everyone before anything happens. I'm like, get on with it.
Yeah, and that is a very cliche Hollywood thing, and there's a whole reason for that. And you know, it used to be before Star Wars came out that was a rule that you couldn't break, and then luckily Star Wars came in and they were like, no, this is silly. We just want to get to the film. But you know, and it's the fact that Michael Caine is credited at the end of that as well. It goes through all the Muppets, and then it's Michael Caine. He's not even at the start. Which you know, it's great. I mean, you know, the humor as well is top quality throughout this, I think, personally. You know, whether that's the one that stands out to me is the gate where Rizzo climbs the gate and he's like, jump off, and he jumps, and then he's like, oh, I forgot my beans, and he just walks through it and then back through it again. I was like, oh god, it's the good visual humor, that good clean comedy, I think, is what a lot of people would say, and it sells it very well, and it fits in with the tone of how everything's going. And it's great. And even when he lands down the fire and he's having to run on the turkey, and I think it's just all, it could so easily be easy slapstick humor, but I think it works quite nicely with a lot of this. And it stops when it needs to stop as well, with, you know, with the terrifying Christmas future stuff. They even say, too scary for us, lads, we're off, and then that kind of cuts the humor for that section because it needs to be.
I shouldn't have laughed as much as I did when he just gets frozen and then Gonzo's just carrying his frozen rat. It's so stupid, but I was just like nearly crying with laughter at just that one shot.
And like there are so many, you know, we talk about set design, there are so many just normal puppets as well, Muppets. There's so many different variations that they could have kept this such a small set, and you know, it's so just the classic ones, you know, the people that know, but the fact that they've got so many weird and different puppets showing up, they've got cats, they've got turkeys, they've got grapes, mice, a horrible weird spider puppet thing, which is disgusting, and I hate it. But just even that first scene when Scrooge is walking through everything, the amount of puppets and Muppets and all that kind of stuff that's there, and the amount of work that would have gone in to make all of that work as well, is, you know, it will be loads of people behind that. And it's just a big credit. Are there any other points that you sort of really enjoyed, really want to talk about?
Let's see. I mean, all I ever want to talk about is the Ghost of Christmas Present. So I think that's like the biggest achievement of it. It's just a funny little guy. Just how he's brought to life is so good. I bet that was also, I guess, a nice break for Michael Caine as well, to have something that he doesn't have to look down at. It's just this big boy, and like the effects of him like growing and shrinking and everything like that.
Getting older.
Yeah, getting older, bless him. I've had 1,200. My brothers have died before me. It's so good. But yeah, I think they clearly very carefully selected which ones to use for which roles and stuff. And I think it would have been very easy to just have Scrooge as like a puppet as well, and you know, go through all that. But I think they've definitely all comes through that they just put the story first, which I think is the way to do it. Because like, you know, you think of like maybe the more like big and famous Muppets and stuff, they kind of don't get as big of a part as you might expect from some of them.
No.
But that's just because they're serving the story first. And then there are some Muppets that I feel like we didn't even get at all. I don't know if they were even maybe part of the cast at this point because I'm a noob. But you know, the fact that it clearly feels like a labor of love from start to finish for just the Christmas Carol in general, and they're willing to maybe not merchandise some Muppets with more screen time than they would normally get in favor of that. I just think that's really cool that comes through.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that's showcased by the fact that I don't think Miss Piggy shows up until the Ghost of Christmas Present. And that's, you know, she's obviously one of the big main Muppets. Kermit, although in it throughout, he isn't in it as much. You know, he doesn't really get much of a part at the start. He gets his song, which you know, you kind of have to do as him being the lead.
Yeah, that is the one time I'm like, he's getting a song because he's Kermit, I think, rather than because there needs to be one.
I think that's fair. Yeah, but you know, I mean, Fozzie Bear's in it for the one scene, well, two scenes, but the one scene where he's running the rubber chicken shop, rubber chicken factory, or whatever it is. Obviously, Statler and Waldorf, Marley and Marley, which again is a nice it's a nice twist on Marley anyway, because obviously it's only supposed to be one person, and it works well to put that on there.
And like the Marley was dead to begin with line still works because they're both Marley.
Yes.
So I like that. You might think, okay, and then they just pop up. And you couldn't just have like one of them either, because they do go together. So I like that they can find a way to make it work and make a good song to go with it.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, even the production design in that, because they're slightly see-through, they've got all their chains and boxes and stuff, but you can't, you know, that would have all been done physically and then, I don't know, green screened out. And the fact that you just can't tell that that's how it was done, I think it works really well. But yeah, we've got the Swedish chef in there at some point as well, just again at the Fozziewig stuff, which I think is where they sort of go, okay, now here we can put in some of the more ludicrous Muppets, where we've got Animal
the ones who
and
didn't
that
quite fit in.
Animal playing the triangle, which I think is a nice sort of inversion of him normally. And Benson and Beaker as well, as the charity people who, I mean, I love Beaker, and he's my favorite Muppet.
I know you do.
And you know, I'm gutted there's not more of him, but when he gives him his scarf at the end, I'm like, oh, that's so heartwarming. And he's like,
and again, even I find that really funny as well. It's just like that subtle humor, because it's just this tiny little scarf, like it just and it's on. I just find that hilarious. So good.
It's great. But yeah, I think as you mentioned, they do really serve the story first.
They serve.
They all serve, yes. But I mean, you know, for me, there's literally, I would say, nothing wrong with this film. I watch it every year. I cannot criticize it because I generally don't think there's anything wrong with it. You know, it's a great story, obviously, because it stood, you know, for what, over 100 years at this point, if not 200. You know, and it's a timeless story for a reason, and the Muppets sort of bringing their humor and that to it works for me. Obviously, if you hate the Muppets and that kind of humor, it's not going to work for you naturally. But I think it all just comes together perfectly in what is, you know, probably one of the best Christmas film, you know, that can be rewatched and is very timeless and is very unlikely to age poorly, like certain other Christmas films that have come out. But is there anything that you would change? Is there anything that you'd sort of criticize around the film?
I do like the number of like different Muppets and stuff, but there were a few I was like, I don't know if they aesthetically fit. And I was like, I could have done without that.
Yeah.
I think it's like some kind of like lobstery thing in a window right at the end, like as they're like panning up like the final shot. I think I'm like, why? So it's just like, it's weird because it you see something like that and I'm like, that just doesn't fit in this world.
That doesn't fit, and then you look at everything else.
All the other ones are fine. I don't know what it is in my brain. It's like, no, that's not wrong. You know, these crustaceans can't be here. No. So you know, little things like that. I think my hot take would be, I don't need Rizzo. I think he could go. You know, I think he's definitely there to be like the comic relief, But I think
yeah,
I found a lot of the humor in all the other moments, like the it's the American way and all of that. I think there's lots of humor without him. I don't really need him in there, especially when you've got like the Charles Dickens already. But he's fine.
Yeah.
I can make do with him. But yeah, I think if it was me personally, I probably would have just gotten rid of that. But it's fine.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. I think I can kind of get where you're coming from. I think he's kind of there to be the sort of bouncing off point for Charles Dickens, where and sort of the audience surrogate. So if the audience might have a question of, "Oh, how do you know that? How does that? That's kind of where that can come in." But yeah, I like most of their scenes. I think most of them work, but I think sometimes you don't necessarily need to have them. But then at the same time,
I think there's just he got hurt. He got hurt. He got hurt. That just happens again and again. Like maybe if they'd done some different jokes with him a bit more, like the gate one.
Yes,
different and clever. If there's something a bit more like that, that's just like, oh, okay, how is he going to hurt himself this time? Okay, here we go.
Yeah, because he gets frozen in the little pool. He gets chased by a cat. He gets his feet burnt on the little turkey. Obviously, he jumps off the fence. His tail set on fire. Yeah. So and that I think is a lot of the sort of the Muppet humor, at least coming through there, is the sort of slapstick comedy, because it's so easy to do when it's a puppet, because there's no like injury liability or anything.
Yeah, no forms to fill out.
Yeah, exactly. So I can kind of admit that, but yeah. If before we go on to your fun facts, if you were going to rate this film out of 10, what would you give it?
Probably a solid 9, I would say. I think, in all honesty, like I remember when I first watched it, I was like, yeah, that's good. I can see why people enjoy it, but I've really liked it this time. So I would probably say a 9.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, mine's a 10 out of 10. I mean, that's not a surprise.
It's not a surprise at all.
If it wasn't a Christmas film, I would be watching this all year round. But at the same time, maybe the fact that it's limited to Christmas sort of increases how you feel when you watch it, because you are so connected to it. And
it feels a bit more special of a film because you don't watch it often. More.
Yeah, exactly. So what fun facts do you have for the Muppet Christmas Carol?
Some. Let's have a look.
Oh.
Okay. This is the first Muppets film produced by Walt Disney Studios, whose parent company would later acquire the rights to the characters and assets in 2004. This is the first Muppets film to be produced following the deaths of creator Jim Henson and performer Richard Hunt. The film is dedicated to both. Very wholesome. In May 1990, after Jim Henson's death, talent agent Bill Haber approached his son Brian with the idea of filming an adaptation with the Muppets, saying, and I quote, "A Christmas Carol is the greatest story of all time. You should do that." Haber sold the idea to ABC as a television film, but after the script was submitted, Walt Disney Pictures offered to purchase it for a feature film instead of a TV movie. And the rest was history. Writer Jerry Jewell decided to include Charles Dickens as the narrator to remain faithful to the prose of the original book. Gonzo was chosen for Dickens as he was deemed the least likely choice.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah,
this big old snout. Originally, the ghosts were to be portrayed by popular Muppets characters. Robin the Frog and Scooter were considered for the Ghost of Christmas Past, Miss Piggy for the Ghost of Christmas Present, and before being selected to be Charles Dickens, Gonzo or Animal were to be the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. The idea was scrapped in favour of new Muppet characters to maintain the ominous nature of the story. I think that was probably a good move.
Yes, definitely is, yeah.
English actors David Hemmings, Ron Moody, and David Warner, and the American comedian George Carlin were all considered to play Scrooge. Henson later offered the role to Michael Caine, who said, and I quote, "I'm going to play this movie like I'm working with the Royal Shakespeare Company. I will never wink. I will never do anything Muppety. I'm going to play Scrooge as if it's an utterly dramatic role and there are no puppets around me." He also wanted to take part in a film that his children could watch, which is one of his reasons for signing on.
And this was all the correct choice.
Absolutely. It's a much better film because of that choice, for sure. In order for the Muppets and human actors to appear in the same shot, floors had to be removed and reinserted, with Caine having to walk across narrow planks between the puppets and their performers. So definitely had to film a film out for that. So I guess that made up for having all those puppets around.
Yeah.
The London buildings in the street scenes were constructed by hand, but diminished in size in order to make the streets look longer. The song "It Feels Like Christmas" ends with a crane shot where the small buildings become visibly seen in the background. Brian Henson explains in the commentary that they were aware of this problem when shooting, but decided the closing shot was worth it as only a few people would probably notice the error. Which is true, because I did.
Yeah.
Bell's song "When Love Is Gone" was cut from the theatrical release by Jeffrey Katzenberg, the chairman of Walt Disney Studios at the time. Get him! Who believed it would not appeal to young viewers. Brian Henson objected to the decision, saying that the ending song "The Love We Found" was a direct counterpoint to it. It featured in various forms on some home media releases, but not all of them. In 2018, Henson said it was unlikely the song would appear in any future releases of the film, as Disney had reportedly lost the original film master and film negative. However, in 2020, Disney archivists found the footage, and Henson reported it would be included in all future 4K releases. Due to time constraints, the song didn't feature in the December 2020 release of the film on Disney+, with the song featuring as a deleted scene. In December 2022, the full version of the film became available to watch in an option in the extras, which is the one I watched and the only one I'll ever watch. The song "One More Sleep Till Christmas" ends with Kermit staring up as a shooting star flies by. Brian Henson stated that it was a nod to the Muppet movie where a similar scene happens, and this particular star was in memory of his late father. It has since become a recurring element throughout various Muppet productions. In the film's finale, a shop named Micklewhite's can be seen. This is a nod to Michael Caine's real given name, Maurice Micklewhite. The more you know. What a name. I'm glad you changed it. The eerie floating appearance of the Ghost of Christmas Past was achieved by submerging the puppet and its performers in a tank of baby oil packed by a green screen. When using baby oil began getting too expensive, water was used instead. That's probably just the way you should have gone. Whose first thought was, yeah, baby oil. Why was that your first choice? I don't know. There you go.
Ridiculous.
The film opened at 6th place at the box office and was a moderate box office success. Its theatrical run in tough competition with Home Alone 2 and Disney's own film Aladdin. Fred's wife, Clara, is notably absent from the final feast at the end of the movie. In the commentary, Henson revealed he'd received many letters from fans asking where she was, and that the simple answer was that actress Robin Weaver was not available that day. So sometimes it's just that simple, folks. Two songs were cut from the film that still feature in the soundtrack. Bunsen and Beaker were to sing "Room in Your Heart" as they pled for a donation from Scrooge, while Sam Eagle, as Scrooge's headmaster, sang "Chairman of the Board." The songs were recorded but never filmed, cut as it was decided neither really added to the story, which probably makes sense. And then finally, you did mention this, I think, earlier. For the shot of Kermit walking down the street with Robin as Tiny Tim on his shoulders, 10 puppeteers had to be used. A rotating barrel covered in fake snow was used to create a natural gate, and behind was a blue screen that would later remove the visible puppeteers in shot. So there you go. The magic of movies.
Lovely. It's great. It's great stuff. And it's just a great film. They really don't make them like this anymore, except when they did make the Muppets movie at the Muppets 2008? No, 2011 was the Muppets.
Right.
Which is Man or Muppet time. And then they did Muppets Most Wanted, which I think was a few years after.
My old acting teacher's in that, very briefly.
Oh, there you go. Ty Burrell is in that from Modern Family. He has a little role to play. And then they did obviously they did Muppet Wizard of Oz, which I don't think was very well received. That was 2005.
I need to Google this.
Unfortunately. And they also did a very short-lived, as in it was one season of The Muppets, which was a TV show in the style of The Office, but with the Muppets.
Oh my God, Gonzo's the Tin Man. That's hilarious.
It's great, you know. They should do these more. I mean,
30% on Tomatoes. Maybe I won't watch that.
No, it's not. I don't think it's well received. But you know, again, this is Muppet Christmas Carol is why people say they should literally pick any book and just do a Muppet adaptation for it.
I think that's the thing for me. I think I'd only be interested in Muppet stuff if it's like an adaptation of something, but with Muppets. Their own original things, I can't say I'd be interested. But
no, I think
like this. It really works.
Yeah, and if again, as you said, if they give the source material sort of the credit that it needs and the attention that it needs, it works. I don't know if there was an issue with that with Wizard of Oz, but Treasure Island is well received as well. That's got Tim Curry.
Tim Curry, yeah. Space.
Yeah. Although in this case, it's C.
See.
Yeah. But even then, I think he gives a pretty good performance in that. I think he has a bit of a love interest with Miss Piggy, which is an choice. And there's a nice recurring gag in that one where there's just a bunch of rats that are just as if they're on a cruise as the ship's going through. So they just appear like at the start, just going through, which is quite a nice recurring gag. But yeah, that's it for this review. I really enjoy this film, and I am watching it again before Christmas because I'm going to see it on the big screen.
Are you now?
As well, so
that'll be nice.
Good. But naturally, I think this will be one that I continue to watch no matter what for years and years to come. But yeah, I mean, if people have made it this far, then by all means, let us know what films you want to see us talk about, and if they're bad ones, we this has been a very positive one, but that wasn't necessarily intentional. We will watch films that maybe one of us didn't like, or one of us, or maybe both of us didn't like. That's the whole thing. But it's ultimately it's up to us to see what we want.
Let's watch Patrick, my least favorite film of all time.
Okay, yeah, sure, let's do that. But we're up for anything. We'll watch anything. We've got time to watch stuff. So the world is our oyster in terms of films, as long as they're easily accessible and not like destroyed. Looking at you, Warner Brothers, Max, and to some extent Disney Plus as well. But it's fine. But yeah, that's it. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.